We have Ken Venables here from CoreLogic. Jonathan Johnson will be joining him. As you guys know, we've talked about who would be cool to have on and speak to us, what's an important topic. So some of the things that they had proposed to talk to us about are credit expert features for LOs, rapid recheck. There's a couple of credit updates in regards to collection accounts, coming up, consumer facing resources, and just basically any credit questions that we have. So Ken, total free form, however you want to kind of lead this, the floor is yours, and thank you.
Chrissy, thanks so much for having me. And yeah, I'd like to keep things very casual, interactive. So as questions come to mind, anything that piques your interest, here in our 30 minutes, by all means. And Jonathan, appreciate you joining here as well. And I work with Jonathan Johnson just briefly. I support all the training on Credco products and services. So my role is really to support Jonathan as changes take place within our industry, credit and otherwise. It's my role to make sure that you folks have all the tools, resources, and support so that you can work more effectively with your customers. So that was part of the agenda, was to make it really more centered around bringing greater value to the consumer, who we're finding, and I'm sure you are as well, they're making an effort to get more informed on credit and scores, and some of the information can be confusing, overwhelming. So our goal is to provide, again, those trusted resources that's going to help you work more effectively with your customer. One of the first things in the agenda, just wanted to briefly review, is a feature within the Credit Expert suite of score simulation tools. This may be known to some of you, but was working with some folks the other day that had been using Credit Expert for a number of years, and actually were not aware that this particular feature existed. And there were a couple. The first within the Wayfinder tool. So as you go through and request Wayfinder and develop that potential score plan for your borrower, and I'll just kind of see if I can grab a range here with the various accounts and actions to take place as you're viewing the details here. This also kind of fits into the rapid rescore process, where at the bottom of the results, you'll see there's a nice summary for taking the next step if rapid recheck is in your plans here. There's also that nice gray shaded area to remind the borrower of things that they should avoid doing. I think there's a misconception that there's a 100% absolute guarantee with Credit Expert and rapid recheck. It's going to provide favorable results. And there have been instances where consumers have kind of wandered astray. So this is, a nice reminder. The feature that I wanted to show is at the top, where there is a printer icon. If you want to print out the details or the instructions and provide it to the borrower. And again, whatever policies that you folks may have in place for sharing information with the borrower, certainly adhere to those, but there's no personal identifying information, which was intended by the folks at Credit Expert, with even using this icon on a copy and paste, where you can take the instructions, you can copy them, head over into an email, and be able to paste that information into an email to send out to your borrower, and then be able to go through and highlight, change fonts, draw attention to anything in particular, add your own comments up above here. I went ahead and tried to type out something on my own before the call started so that it looked like it made sense and spelled correctly, since I don't always do that on live sessions here. But just wanted to point out that the tools that are available here within Wayfinder, again, no personal identifying information. It's a great way to share those details, because again, when it comes to the rapid recheck process, because of the cost involved, want to make sure that there's some background, some education to the borrower on exactly what they need to obtain from the creditor, so that the process moves along as efficiently as possible. And I think too, Christy, we shared an updated guide on the best practices utilizing our service, and we tried to find that balance of providing as much information as we could without getting too far into the weeds, because it can get pretty complex just based on how each bureau operates, national creditors, And we've got, agents that can answer questions as well, but I just wanted to highlight the feature on, generating the results either into a PDF or a copy and paste into an email if you so choose to. The other feature, while I'm in Credit Expert real quick, relates to the what if simulator. And I'll just grab a bureau here. And this kind of sort of factors into the rapid recheck processes as well. And I'm going to enlarge this because that seems to be really small.
Excuse me, Ken, can I ask a quick question on this before we go on to the next thing?
Yeah, Steve, please.
Yeah. So what you're doing there, and you're saying this is on just one specific bureau. So in this case, it looks like it was Experian that you did. Is this going to, so what's the process after they pay whatever it is that they're requesting get paid down? Then we take all that information and then send that into the company, into Credco? Is that how it works?
You bet, Stephen. I'll answer it this way. Just again, I'll speak kind of general and whatever policies your organization has in place. But to your point, if it's paying down the balance on a revolving account, right? Typically too, by the way, Stephen, this may be more than what you're looking for, but on a credit report, it's typically the previous month's statement balance. So you could be working with a borrower that has already made the payment. It's just not in the reporting cycle for that creditor to update their records. So one of two things can happen. If they have paid it, have not, they get an online statement. So the borrower will go and just get a statement from their credit card provider that shows today's date and it's a zero balance or that it's paid down to whatever level. The key is the statement. For best practices, we see folks get like a screen print and try and create like a JPEG and send it through. It has to be the actual printout with like the URL, on the bottom of that document. Through our site, you can request our rapid recheck service or rapid rescore. It's all kind of semantics, where you're going to share with us that document that the borrower has obtained. Our team will forward it through to the bureau or bureaus that you would like to have updated. And then within approximately 3 to 5 days, we're notified by the bureau that you've requested that, yes, everything looks good. It's been updated, where a new credit report is requested so that you can see the updated recalculated scores. So it's a really long.
So you don't have to wait until the end of the following month for the bureaus to update with the revolving debt.
Yeah, Chuck, and appreciate that. So we do offer a service that expedited. Again, it's going to be contingent. And Christy, I hope I'm not speaking out of school on the recheck, process, but there is a service to expedite. It comes with an additional, cost. And so I'm, speaking generally and don't want to speak out against any other policies that you folks may have in place on utilizing that service. So.
Okay.
Especially since this call is being recorded, it may come back to get me later on there. So, and so, Steve, I hope I got close to what you were asking for.
Yes, it was. Thank you.
And then
if you want to say that, on this call recorded that it's going to be free for the first month for each bureau, that'd be great too.
Well, I can do that as well. It's been nice working with all of you. I've enjoyed my 28 years at Credco, and so.
No, that was great. Thank you.
Yeah, you bet. And Chuck, to your point, I'm going to show you a feature within the What If Simulator, where if I have spoken out against a policy on utilizing rapid recheck, that I just want to make sure that you're aware of within the What If. And it's right over here. So as you see the open date with each of the creditors account.
Sorry to interrupt. The email that you have is in the screen, so we can't see the behind it.
Perfect. Thank you. That's what happens when you start real early here. So Christy, thanks for catching that for me here. So to Chuck's question, with regards to the date or waiting the month or so, if it's being captured by the bureaus, as you hover over the open date, this becomes a link. When you click on the link, and I know it's really small and apologize for that, but you may see the actual day that the creditor reported, right? So this is a sample. So you're going to see some, older, random dates. You might see the same one over and over. This may give you an idea as far as the reporting cycle as to when that creditor, would report. So, here we are, on the 14th. There's a probability if these folks report consistently on the 15th, they may report tomorrow. Right. So it's just another aspect to, just take into consideration. So Chuck, to your point on, waiting the month or so, this may shed a little light. Now, I don't want to guarantee, you may only see the, the month and year. It's going to be dependent again on the creditor, but I just want to point out this feature that it is available to you, that you can just click on the link of the open date to maybe get a sense or get an idea as to when that creditor reports. This one too only has the print option. By the way, it does not have the copy and paste. Wayfinder was kind of the new evolution from the folks at Credit Expert. So if you do run a score, plan here, you can still print and provide. This just does not offer the copy and paste.
Good stuff.
Excellent. And then finally too, just this drop down menu also, and let's take rapid recheck just out of the discussion for just a moment. Maybe you're working with a borrower where it's early in the process. This gives you perhaps a sense where if they pay their debt on time, over time, through these incremental time frames, and again, it's just an estimate, but where are we going to be 9 months from now? Hey, all things being equal, no significant changes, we get that potential lift here. So even if you're not considering utilizing the rescore or the recheck process, you can still perhaps get a sense here over time with these incremental time frames, depending on the situation with your customer. And I know our time is limited, but I'll stop again for just a second just to see if there's anything else within Credit Expert Rapid Recheck that
Ken, may I ask a question?
absolutely, Gwen, please.
At one time, I was told that the bureaus receive the information from the creditors, but they only update on the 5th and the 20th. Do you know if that's still the case? Because that would help when you look at last reported date.
Yeah, Gwen, and to be honest, I've heard various time frames as well, and it's really up to the the creditor as far as where there's no set date. And in fact, there's actually nothing that says creditors have to report, because you may be working with a customer that has an account that's not furnishing their records to the bureaus.
I'm sorry, I meant once they send it to the bureaus, when do the bureaus update their record? That's what I was told, when they receive it from the creditor, but they only update the system twice a month.
I'm sorry. I apologize.
No, I probably didn't word it correctly.
No, I'm sure you're just fine. So my understanding is that when it gets, sent on through, to the bureaus, the records are now updated. So whenever that creditor furnishes through, that's why, we get asked a lot when we prepare, supplements, why our report, is updated and it's not at the, not at the bureaus because it hasn't furnished through. But as soon as, the creditors submit electronically or on tape, since it's all done, in that format, that the information is updated at the bureau level. So Gwen, I hope I got close to that. I'm happy to have discussions internally with our team to see if they've heard otherwise, but to our knowledge,
just because that would be great. I won't bore you with why I'm asking, but it does seem like the 2 dates I was told is when things change, when people are watching their Credit Karma or something. So with curiosity, if you
Sure.
address
Absolutely.
curiosity, that would be great.
Absolutely. Gwen, be glad to. And that's, it's a great point, because that goes back to the consumer experience as well, because of Credit Karma and the sources out there, which I just want to highlight one other thing too, if I may, just speaking of that while it comes to mind, and maybe just a little bit off topic. And some of you may already be aware of this, but on our report and on any credit report, when you see, and that's really small, when you see the 4 and potentially up to 5 factor or reason codes that are associated with the score, these factor or reason codes indicate why the borrower did not score higher in the score band, and they're listed in order of importance, in order of weight to the score. And I highlight this, Gwen, because as folks go to places like Credit Karma to get their score, if you happen to have more than one credit report on a borrower, this gives you the opportunity to compare first off the score models and the version of the score models to make sure that it's an equal comparison. And if it is, if there is a difference in scores, these factor or reason codes may indicate or shed some light as to why that difference occurred.
So when they do make these major changes, wouldn't those codes shift? Because again, my knowledge is based on talking to a company like yourself 15 years ago, but I was told the first code is 40% of your score, then 30, then 20, then 10. So if they do something and they're no longer proportion of balances is their negative, is that taken into account in the calculator that it reshuffles what they think will be the code?
Precisely. When in fact, actually, we've heard on occasion, hey, you pulled my report, your inquiry dropped my score. When you look at the factor of reason codes, you don't see inquiries on there. It's the fact that these folks, in some instances, went and applied for 3 different extensions of credit. Right. So, so it wasn't so much from us, as you'll see, like these other department stores, or the fact that maybe they went late on another account or transferred a balance over to another where it increased the balance in relation to limits. So you're absolutely correct, is that as soon as these factor of reason codes, change, that may shed some light as to why you're looking at at different scores if you're having more than one report. Or again, you could be working with somebody that went to an online service that's using a score model that is not used within the mortgage industry. And that's why you kind of look over here to the, to the bureau and the score model here to make sure you're doing a like or equal comparison as well.
And then I promise this is my last question, but for years we've been told that consumer credit reports, that when you have your credit pulled, their algorithm engine is treating that as that you've got new debt leveraged, and the mortgage algorithm says you're shopping, and they can have credit pulled 5 times within 30 days and it treated as one pull. We hear that a lot, and I just want to make sure all these changes that have been made with credit and algorithms, that's still the case, and we're saying that accurately.
You are saying that accurately. In fact, I'll take it a step farther, Gwen, and appreciate the questions too, by the way, but within 30 days for auto, mortgage, and actually student loans, there's that grace or that buffer period within 30 days for no impact when the inquiry is of those 3 particular types. And then beyond the 30 days, there's an additional window that can range from 14 to 45, depending on the bureau, where those multiple inquiries are treated as one.
And it's even more than 5 inquiries, is it not now?
So it's any inquiry within that 30-day window, Chuck, auto mortgage has no impact, right? So it's not
Right. So Gwen, your borrowers can pull 10, 15 times within that 30 days.
And so do I understand you correctly to say, you see those poor people that buy an auto and they pull their credit 20 times, that's not taken into account? That's one pull? Did you say that?
So auto mortgage and student loans, Gwen. So if they're shopping around at a dealership, the key is making sure that the inquiry identifies specifically for automobile, right? So it's like at the dealership and not from, some other company where it could be just kind of generic, but it's within that time frame. Auto mortgage and student loan has no impact within 30 days. And then beyond that, that buffer period, then they get consideration of between 14 to 45 for where it's grouped together and treated as a single inquiry.
And Jonathan provided a document. It has great links. I mean, I spent a long time going through each of them, the FICO score, the consumer education. So we'll share that. We do a recap every day, the follow-up. So we'll share that, and that will answer a lot of questions. But I thought that had a lot of great information there.
Perfect. So just a couple last things, and great, appreciate the questions here. So I just wanted to shift topics real quick. Just do a couple last things. With regards to and specifying here on collection accounts of a medical nature. So this, I believe, was announced last year, and it started really in the the summer here, where now they've extended the time period where medical debts, before they can be turned over for collections, there's now a 12-month waiting period. It had been incrementally moved up to 180 days. This is to ensure that the debt of a medical nature, while it's going through the process of being paid by insurance. So it was actually shorter than that time frame. So you started to see a number of medical related collections. So now there's a 12-month kind of cooling period or waiting period to ensure that, again, the debt is being addressed by insurance. Also, too, with regards to the paid medical collections, and this is specific to medical. There was some information circulating around that put collections kind of in general. But paid medical collections will be removed from credit reports. So perhaps on that what if simulator, if you go back through and you happen to see a medical collection and can simulate the impact of it being paid, may shed some light, give you an idea here of having that removed. And then finally, beginning March 30th, medical collections of under $500 will no longer show up or be reported on a consumer's credit profile. So we have heard directly from the folks at Experian. It stands to reason, and we are double checking, but there's a degree of confidence that TransUnion and Equifax are going to follow suit, specifically also when this is going to be watched very closely by the CFPB for consistency. And so I bring this up because of the fact that if you're working with, again, borrowers where we're talking about medical collections, these aspects here are going to provide, we think, the consumer with, some significant benefits here of having paid collections removed, and those that are under $500 no longer showing up on their credit profile.
Is
Okay,
that
so
something
maybe
that's
then
going to need a rapid rescore, or is that something that's, if they're on there, that it can be automatically removed?
Right, whose responsibility is it to make sure that's right? The bureau or the customer?
Yeah, that's gonna, well, and I'm gonna answer it this way. I'm gonna say both. And the reason why I say that, and more to your point, it should take place as part of, policy, right? That this needs to happen, and the CFPB is watching to make sure that the bureaus follow through on this and making sure that these don't, show up, because the consumer always has the, the opportunity to formally dispute, right, those particular items. And more, the reason why I said both, because I'm going to lead into this, because I think it's worth pointing out here in my final moments with you folks, and it's this. The annual creditreport.com website that was implemented for consumers, go figure, to get the report annually. For those that may not be aware, when COVID struck in last year, the Bureau started to offer free weekly credit reports to consumers. That offer was extended through 2023. So through the remainder of this year, consumers can obtain a copy of their credit report from each of the 3 bureaus for free. So while the onus is on the bureaus with regards to the medical collections, this is still a great opportunity. And let's face it, we are all consumers as well, right? So this is for all of you to be able to have that opportunity to go and check and make sure that the contents are accurate, that there's nothing reported that, shouldn't. Gives you an opportunity to stay on top of your credit. And so you can go weekly and get a report. And so that's why it can be addressed really from both sides. The onus is on the bureaus, but I would encourage your borrowers to make sure too that items that are being reflected in their credit profile, are accurate.
Is that each medical collection under 500, or an aggregate added together equaling 500?
Great question. Appreciate that. It's each under 500. So any collection that's, under $500 is not to be showing up again, starting March 30th here.
I have a question about accounts that are not labeled medical, but they in fact came from, dentist office, some who are notorious for going to a certain creditor for their financing for their client for long-term dental work. But yet they're not labeled medical, so the borrowers are having to deal with it in a different way, or we're having to deal with it in a different way.
Ooh, so they're kind of doing, Terry, if I'm following you, kind of an end around on this. If I'm following you here, as far as it sounds like it might be of a medical nature, but they're
right. The original debt was for dental work for this client. And when I did some research, it appeared that this client is not the only one who is fighting this battle. And so, but the thing is, we couldn't eliminate it because according to the credit report, it's not labeled medical.
not interesting. Let me Terry, consult with our team internally here to see, at least from a, dental perspective, or if we're seeing kind of the same, trend here, and if there's, kind of a general, consensus. There are a lot of things that, as we all know, that should happen, that sometimes, do not. So what I'll do, in addition to Gwen's question, is see if we can consult just for, and I'll use dental as the example to see if we're seeing any trends, or if that's, hopefully resolved itself here over time as well.
Hey, Ken,
And I have a question if I can. Sorry. I keep getting pushback from people that they don't want their credit pulled because they're concerned about it degrading their score. Do you know what the effect of one mortgage pull will do to affect their score? Is there a magic number?
So I'm going to answer it this way, because it's really dependent. So consumers, when it comes to scoring, they are grouped in pools or buckets with other consumers that have like or similar credit profiles, right? So you're not going to, gauge a level of risk of somebody just starting out managing credit with someone that's managed credit for a number of years. Generally speaking, because in the algorithms of scores, inquiries make up about 10% of the overall calculation. And this is a really broad number, but less than 5 points on an average credit profile has been what's estimated by the folks at, at Fair Isaac. What and again, it may vary as far as, who you're working with, how old is their credit profile, what mix of accounts do they have, in there. And that's why, again, Ira, that our inquiry, we are identified at the bureaus for mortgage lending. So when they come in, and see you for a loan, our inquiry within those 30 days are not going to have an impact to the score, because we're that buffer period allows for the qualifying of the best deal. So, and I think you're still on mute, Iris. So I want to hear.
Yeah, so that's multiple polls, but whether they have one or whether they have 10 in a 30-day period, it's just impacted by whatever it is.
Yeah. So it's going to be, for mortgage, it's going to be different than, say, like the credit card. But again, at 10% of the score, and I'm speaking just, again, very broadly, which I get reluctant to do, but less than, less than 10, it'd be, 5 points as far as, just kind of on average there from from an impact. So. And Jonathan, I know we're close to the bottom of the hour. Did you have something?
Yeah, I was looking at the time, but I want to also make sure that we were trying to hit on some of the questions that was in the chat window.
I apologize.
I can start it off just to make sure we respond back to everyone, and then anything I can answer can maybe jump in.
Great.
But I want to go back to the first question. Do we have access to Rapid Rescore? The answer is yes. loanDepot users do have access to Rapid Rescore and Credit Expert products via the Credco.com portal. So that's where those two products would be ordered. Will the bureaus send an updated credit report without us pulling a new one? The answer is yes. After the Rapid check is completed, our operations team will pull a new credit report and then return that reference number to the user so that you can re-pull that credit report. Does ITIN return scores? Ken, are you familiar with the ITIN?
It's the number, the identifying number for tax purposes. I have heard, and we can just double check and confirm internally that if credit gets established using that ITIN, so if there's a credit profile with payment history, it would be just like, a social, but let's make sure that, insert in there, but it's a number for tax purposes in lieu of a government issued social.
Okay. And the next question, is there a charge to use the simulator and rescore? The answer is yes for both. I would recommend following up with your vendor manager. I think her name is Nicole Cario. They are currently reviewing the new contract between CoreLogic and loanDepot that identifies those charges for the various products.
And just to jump in on that, that is something to definitely talk about with your branch managers too, because we can't pass that charge on to the consumer. So that would hit the branch.
Thank you, Christy. Yes, that's a very good point regarding that. I think you've already hit on some of these other ones. I think that was about it. unless there are other questions that anyone else has that have come to mind.
I wanted to see, I know on this call a lot, we talk about opting out or consumer solicitation more. I know that's kind of a hot topic for you. Do you guys have questions on that while we have them here?
Yeah, so here's what's happening. We pull somebody's credit and the bureau, one of the bureaus is selling it. And I had an attorney who called me and said, I got 90 phone calls in the last 2 days because you pulled my credit. Like, what can we do to stop it? It's maddening.
Yep. All right. And so two things. The first, and again, this falls back into the category of what should happen, sometimes doesn't, always from those companies. So the, registering on the do not call registry, number one. Number two, while this does take up to, and I believe it's 5 days to implement, but the site, and let's make sure that I'm showing the site of the optoutprescreen.com.
Yep.
Or that this will opt out those offers or solicitations. So both in the mail as well as those calls that are coming through. That's part of the reason why I had the consumer resources loaded up, ready to go here. And that's why, having a discussion, ahead of time, or if you have the luxury of time to have your borrower opt out before ordering credit, otherwise of, hey, just, this is a practice that takes place, to your point, where when the hard inquiry hits, it's used as kind of a lead generation. It generates calls. So extremely long answer to your short question. More is that the do not call, the opt out. And I just want to clarify one other item just on the frequently asked questions. We've seen information floating around that opting out of these types of solicitations, that's really faint, improves one's score, and that is not true. So if you happen to hear from somebody that says, hey, if I opt out of these solicitations, it improves my score, it really doesn't. This is just to stop those types of solicitations. But those are the steps really more that we would recommend is get registered on the do not call registry, and getting registered on the opt out of the credit and insurance solicitations, as well as just the education advance notice that practice could happen.
Hi, just to add to that really quick, we've been told also, if you take the phone number out and the email out and put a fake phone number in, that they will not get solicited. Is that true?
That one is, from what we understand, the credit header files, when they've applied for other sources of credit or also on employment, it's already at the bureau level. So our understanding is that is not, I mean, that's certainly something that you could do. I mean, we're kind of the all of the above, type approach there, but that information currently resides as part of the header file at the bureaus from other sources of applications.
I've been doing that and it's helpful some of the time, but not all of the time, which is probably what Ken was referencing, because I just had a guy the other day that said the calls flooded, but maybe we can tell them, don't let anybody else pull your credit and you'll be good because I'm protecting you, but they're not. I don't know.
Did you take out the phone number and email address?
I don't take it out because I think if it's not, I was told that if it's blank, they probably have it elsewhere, but I've been sort of jumbling the numbers and jumbling the email address
Exactly.
so that something's in there.
And I'll provide some information on this to my action item also. We've got some information that we'll share with you with regards to this practice, that if you find it helpful, up to you if you want to, share it with your borrower. So we'll arm you with some more, info, if you will. I know we're past time, and I apologize. There were just a couple last things I just want to make sure we get to, and this is part of the list that we share with you, because the questions have been great, by the way. Just education on credit scores, right? So we'll be able to have you provide this link to your, customers if they have an interest in just, a deeper dive. These are what I would call the trusted resources within the MyFICO education. This is kind of, I think, a cool page. Others may not think it's as cool. This is just a grid that just provides a nice visual that hey, if you're going to apply for, a 30-year loan, and, if you're, perhaps living next door to Christie in Florida here, and you've got I don't know, $900,000, which might be a stretch, and if your score falls into this range, anyway, just this is something for the consumer to use. It as they improve their credit standing, it's just a nice visual that shows the actual dollars that it translates to. And again, this is just a rough estimate. It's just, provide some insight, but this is part of the education page at MyFICO. We talked about the opt-out, we talked about the annual credit report. And then we'll also provide this link, I think we have already, for the consumer on, the FTC, with a lot of information on, facts, fallacies, scams, what to be on the lookout for, right? As they get all these calls that come in from like the Social Security Administration that, that some of us seem to get regular, that our social has been, I can't figure out if they're trying to call us because we've had our social stolen, or that we stole it. They're always a little confusing there when they call, much like the automobile warranties, where they say that it's the last call and we all know that it's not. But anyway, so just some helpful resources here as well. And I've gone well past the time, but I've got some action items here that I'll work on following our call. So Christy, I apologize that we've exceeded, but I love the questions and the interaction from the team here.
No, we appreciate it, especially being so early on the West Coast. And we have the resources. Thank you, Jonathan, that we'll include in the follow-up. Guys, I can't thank you enough for your time. This is